Hello and welcome to In the Corner Live. My name is Si, standing in for the awesome Mr. Benny Mac, who is on his hollybobs today. So, yeah, he misses what is, I've just been told, the year anniversary of In the Corner. How's about that, eh? Whole 12 months of this show, looking at modern day WWE for you. But whereas Benny is away, his partner in crime is not. Joining me on this show this week, as opposed to joining Benny like normal, is the always fantastic, always entertaining. God, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Mr. Tyler Peters, how are you, my friend?
Si, it's always a pleasure. We do miss Benny, but understand why he needed the vacation. And it's great to be able to talk to you about some modern day WWE. I'm so looking forward to it. I just echo your sentiments. It's always an honor to join you.
Oh, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. I will throw this out here straight away. Everyone is
Okay.
fully aware. Modern day WWE is not my forte. Modern day wrestling is not my forte. So I did watch SmackDown. Of course, I watched Money in the Bank. That's what we're talking about today. I did scan through Raw as well. But Tyler and I had a conversation before recording and said that it's probably best if we just look at primarily Money in the Bank today. Look at the highs and lows from that
Correct.
particular show, the big talking points and so on, because I don't doubt for a second when Benny returns from his holidays next week, he will be touching upon various things that have happened, because there are some huge headlines that come out of that show, which I know Benny will
Yeah,
want to
there's
have
a
his
lot.
say. And yeah, I want to have his conversations with you as well, Tyler. So I thought we'd scan through the results and then just go through a few of the more major talking points and so on, just so everyone knows that we're not ignoring them on the year anniversary of In the Corner. How does that sound?
Yes, it sounds fantastic. We're not ignoring this fantastic audience.
We are not. We are not. And speaking of this, let's dive into the chat before we get started, Tyler, and see who has joined
Yeah,
us.
let's do it.
And this is surreal for me, because on a Monday night on Chain Wrestling, I'm normally the other
I
side of the
know.
screen. That way, that way, that way. No,
Yeah,
that
you're
way.
normally over here,
Yeah,
and what Lord Mags is with you, so people are
that's
probably
right.
wondering what's going on. But that's the beautiful thing about the SJP World Media Network. So you never know who's going to appear on whose show.
Well, there we go. So I'm the wrong side, and this will make everyone laugh, and they're expecting a car wreck. I fully expect. I'm in charge of all the
No,
technical side of things. So let's see how we go. If I disappear, it's because I clicked something wrong. Hold the fort. I will be back. But
okay, I
first
will.
of all, in the chat is Mr. Dan Griffin there. Evening
Hey Dan,
ITCF, not Ipswich Town affiliated. And Dan also says, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. Indeed, we do. Scottish Danny
hey
saying,
Scottish
hey,
Danny.
yo, all. Great to see you joining us there, mate. And Dan saying, looking rough, Benny, hard paper round. You bastard.
Yeah,
That's
Dan,
completely
come
unnecessary.
on.
uh, Scottish Danny, it's money in the bank in the corner. So does that make it MITBITC? That's far too many initials for me to try and remember.
Yeah, it's a lot
And
of initials, but it might could work.
there
Oh,
you
hey
go. There
Sharon.
we go. And the first lady of the SJP World Media Network, my lovely wife Sharon, is in the chat as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So then, Tyler, Money in the Bank, my
Yes, sir.
friend. Initial thoughts. What did you think of the show overall? And obviously, it's the 5th now as we record, but yesterday was of course the 4th of July, a big occasion for yourself over the
It
pond.
was a big holiday.
Yeah, tell us
My
about your
impression.
weekend watching the wrestling and so on.
Yeah, I sure will. So I thought the weekend was terrific. I will say WWE. I'm not just saying this to be partial to them. I love all kind of professional wrestling or all kinds. Let me preference there. I found it to be very entertaining. I felt like the matches were quality. I liked how you had all the storytelling keep evolving. There was more chapters to them, depending on what matchup or even segments backstage, which were very little. It's what I enjoy. It makes it feel different. You don't have
Yeah.
so much going on transpiring backstage. And I got to hand it to London, to the UK. I know that you guys are so passionate, you're knowledgeable, you get excited. And I was just so thrilled for that audience over there. And they put us to shame. They put a lot of people because, I mean, you feel the energy when at an O2 arena, whether it's in Cardiff, Wales. It was just staggering, the response, and it made the show feel even more alive. That's one of the takeaways just right off the bat before we even get into matches. But I felt like the show delivered. It was very well done. Even if there was matches I wasn't looking forward to, I found myself getting immersed at least a little bit. Even if my attention span got off of them, there was at least some moments that brought me back. So, hey, overall, I thought it was a good show.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's my first taste of WWE properly since the last pay-per. I try and catch the pay-per-views or premiere live events, or I'm never going to get used to calling it that, by the way.
Yeah, I
I'm never
understand.
going
Yeah,
to.
that's still. Yeah, I'm so used to pay-per-views. To call them premium live events is an adjustment. I'm with you.
Yeah, I still call it the WWF sometimes. That shows you my mentality
Yeah,
with
me
regards
too.
to change.
I'm still going back to the Attitude Era. Speaking of your knowledge of old school wrestling, where's
There
Stone
we go.
Cold? Well, wait a minute, he's not wrestling anymore. Huh.
No, he's driving like trucks and going skiing and stuff for a new documentary,
Yeah,
isn't he?
he's
Apparently,
he's taking over America or
yeah,
something.
there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was paced incredibly well. There's 7 matches on the main card, and I feel that I find that with WWE pay-per-views, especially with recent WrestleManias before they split it into 2 nights, it can go way too long. It can drag, or it feels like it never really kicks up a gear into what we need, what we want, especially when we get to the main events and so on. You know, if Roman wasn't there, if Brock's the champion and he's not there, I find it difficult sometimes to feel as invested. This
Because that's your
show,
big stars.
yeah, exactly. This show, initially, I was a little concerned when I heard on the pre-show beforehand that the men's Money in the Bank was going to open the show, because I was like, okay, that was a big attraction for me, and we're opening with that. Does that mean we're then going to find a bit of a
Right.
lull as the show goes on? But I think it went really, really well. It ran nice and smoothly. None of the matches overstayed their welcome for me. The matches that needed to be a touch shorter were that. The matches that needed more time were that as well. I really, really enjoyed it.
Hey, I agree. I think you said something well paced. That means the flow
Yeah,
was solid. Like I was stating too, and I stand in agreement with you. So I didn't get too lost, even if my attention span went away from the matches. And the men's Money in the Bank, I get the trepidation because you're thinking, how is this going to open the show with it being such a big match and the stipulation somebody's getting a championship opportunity, retrieving the briefcase, but they made it work. It was just well executed. We could go over spots all day long, but I'll tell you, the match itself, I think everybody got a shine. I think it did what it needed
yes.
to, even if people were disappointed. I mean, what did you think? I'll kind of bounce a question back to you. The overall initial impression of the Money in the Bank match, the men's side that opened up things.
Well, before we dive into that, let's just ask you a quick question here. We have Connor. He
Okay.
says, "Hello, Cy and Tyler. Have to know what MLS club Tyler supports. This may determine if I continue watching or not." Connor is a big, well, to you, it would be soccer, I guess, but, you know, it's the real type
Yeah,
of football.
soccer. Well, Connor, it's always great for you to join us. To be fair, I don't watch soccer enough. No disrespect, so I don't have a favorite team. So please still watch, even if that's a disappointing answer. But to be fair, I'm so immersed in wrestlings so much that even some of the other interests in sports I have right now, I'm not able to fully follow. I mean, like baseball, I'll watch highlights, here and there. But to be fair, I don't have a team that I follow. But
Fair enough.
I think whoever Connor supports, I'll support him because he's a good
There you
guy.
go.
So I'll just take his recommendation.
Connor's recruitment fan drive carries on.
There you
Mr.
go.
Benny
I
Mac
like that.
popping in the chat to
Benny
say, in
Mac.
the corner, 1 year old. Have fun, everyone, and he will see you all next week. WrestleMania in the UK. Yes, please. He is in Cornwall at the moment. We will get to the John Cena segment very soon, I expect.
Yeah, we
Dan
will.
Griffin here saying WWE pay-per-view is superior purely for the fact it rhymes. But it doesn't, does it? WWE
That's it, Ron.
pay-per-view? No, I think he means
Pay per view.
WWE PLE, maybe.
Oh well, it could be. I was
Yeah.
interesting. That you never know what these comments might bring. But that yeah.
Sharon says sometimes I say WWF all of the times, which is fair enough. Yeah, so the opening match, the men's Money in the Bank contest. It's it, I struggle with how many of these there has been now. In the same way that we have the Elimination Chamber and so on, it used to feel incredibly special. And then I think it dropped off a little bit for me. And I don't know whether it was because of the lack of quality in the mid card with regards to the rosters on Raw and SmackDown and so on. But
It's a
this felt
possibility.
important. This felt important. This felt incredible, and this to me could have closed the show. Obviously, we know now why it didn't, because you had the main event was obviously what was the main event was going to be. But
Right.
I thought this was superb. With regards to the winner, did you call that one, Tyler? Because I know you and BenNy do your predictions the week before, don't you?
Yeah, we did. I can't recall, and maybe BenNy can help us out when he returns if I chose Damian Priest or LA Knight. I'll tell you, I can't even remember who I picked, but I don't know that I would have called it. I do see the value in Damian Priest as much as everybody was wanting LA Knight or somebody else. I think Damian Priest was the other option just because there's so much you can do with Judgment Day, and we saw it unfold
Mm-hmm.
throughout the night. We kind of saw it prior if you watch Raw and the way things were heading in a specific direction concerning Damian Priest. I think it is his time. Nothing against LA Knight, no disrespect. I really love his gimmick and the personality. I've been a big fan of his for a long time now. But I don't see it being a necessity that he had to retrieve that briefcase because he's still getting reactions and he's still quality in the ring. So I feel like Damian Priest is just one of those talents that has paid his dues and that has had more longevity, and that's kind of the way I look at it. And what you could do with now what we're seeing with Finn Balor and all the cracks in the armor, so to speak, that they're kind of we see with the bloodline, but now we're kind of seeing it on the side of Judgment Day. So that's kind of I looked at it from a storyline point of view as well as the action.
Mm.
You know, a great match. Butch, I was happy for him, a UK guy. Still love him as Pete Dunne. I'm with BenNy, but you know, I'm getting used to Butch. He's still a great wrestler. The way he manipulates his fingers, I
Oh,
don't even. It makes me hurt. I mean, I think
makes you
LA Knight
judder,
got
doesn't it?
his. Yeah, I mean, very effective, and you know, Shinsuke Nakamura is always fantastic. And Logan Paul, you can say what you want to. The guy's got talent. He's got ability. Ricochet. I'll tell you, speaking of dangerous spots, when the Spanish Fly happened, I was worried
Mm-hmm.
for both those guys. You know, because like Wade Barrett said, somebody's neck could have got seriously broken. I
Yes,
don't think
definitely.
that clicked. Yeah, so I want to know what you thought about that spot, because now that we're talking about this match, I mean, off air, we were just referencing, are these risks worth it? I know it's for our entertainment, but with that Logan Paul Ricochet spot, I know everybody's been talking about the Sting one with AEW, but that was another spot that had me cringing a little bit for both those guys.
Yeah, yeah, it didn't look very good, did it? But and with regards to Logan Paul, first of all, the reactions that he got in London, I thought was superb. This guy is not
Oh, they
liked,
were.
and he knows it, and he plays up to it. He's just a natural heel, isn't he? There's
Oh,
something
he
incredibly
does.
unlikable about him, and I don't think he's ever really let us down when it comes to the in-ring aspect of what he does. It's a pleasant surprise
No,
every time I watch the guy work. The spot itself, it's very it strikes me as almost AEW esque. It's so over the top and ridiculous and almost unnecessary. But the fact that with WWE you don't see that in every other contest, it would have made it really stand out, and it still did. It still looked spectacular. But the biggest takeaway from it was more a case of Struth. I hope nobody's hurt, as opposed to that was spectacular. If that makes sense.
no, it makes perfect sense, and I think Dan Griffin said it was great, and it did. I concur. It did look fantastic. You just worry about the concern of injuries. Is it sometimes the risk worth the reward? As the old
Mm.
cliche kind of tells. But hey, taking nothing away, I love the story they're telling between Ricochet and Logan Paul, and I like the sparring and the promo segments, whether it was SmackDown or the Raw before between LA Knight and Logan Paul. I thought it was fantastic. I like how they're presenting Butch more like Pete Dunne. He's attacking people. He don't need to talk. His actions speak louder than words. I think that's a perfect way to present him. And I was thrilled to see how effective, because most of these Money in the Bank matches, I don't know if you agree, kind of it's easy to lose your attention. It's like a Royal Rumble match. They're exciting, but there's so much going on. But I think the way not only they pace it, but some of the segments of the matches, the execution of them, uh, that's what helped me. It was like, well, this ain't too much. There was
Hmm.
enough guys getting their licks in, or maybe selling, or needing to use the ladder because it's essentially a prop, anyways. And it's a good way to direct the traffic without it being too much. And I hope that's a sensible statement. But that's kind of
Yeah.
another way I looked at it.
Yeah, no, totally. I liked you mentioned Pete Dunne, Butch. I love the use of the cricket
Uh,
bat as well. It's but the
oh
Ashes.
yes,
I'm not a cricket fan, but the Ashes are on at the moment as well, so that was great. Him
okay,
bringing the cricket bat out and so on. Uh, the finish then, because obviously if it wasn't to be Pete Dunne, the majority of the English fans and the majority of fans in general, I would assume, wanted LA Knight. That was the guy that was most favorably looked upon, I guess, with regards to
certainly.
viewers of WWE. I almost felt like they gave us a false finish in a ladder match, which we don't really tend to see. Normally, something big happens and it allows a guy to go up the ladder and get the briefcase. Here, it felt like LA Knight had it in the bag, and everyone was cheering, and he cleared people out, and then somebody else would get in the ring, he cleared them out, and he was doing the wrestler ladder climb, the standard one, is incredibly slow and lethargic, isn't it? And buying time, and you wouldn't
Yeah,
want them
very
hanging
slow.
wallpaper. Yeah, you wouldn't want them hanging wallpaper for you or anything like that, would you? Let's be honest, they take ages.
No,
But as they're getting to the top, and then somebody interrupts them when they're about to win. They find the way to just have a little bit of zip of extra pace to it. LA Knight had that. He climbed the ladder as though he was going up to the top to win. But then we had Damian Priest, and it was like a complete. It was like a 2 and 3/4, and the shoulder comes up when you're expecting the 3 count. I thought it was really cleverly put together, Tyler.
yeah, that's a brilliant observation. A false finish. I did not even put it together, but I'm glad you brought that up, Si. But it's true. It was a little quicker because normally they are very slow going up the ladder, but there was a lot more urgency, I guess would be the word, in which there should have been, and it looked like LA Knight was going to get that opportunity by retrieving the briefcase. Even Wade Barrett, who's been, I think, friends with him, was so excited with the crowd. It made you actually believe
Mm.
there for a while that he was going to be the guy until Damian Priest, I think, hit that broken arrow. It looks kind of like a choke slam, but I guess they call it the broken arrow off the ladder. So, and it spoiled the moment to where Damian Priest. And I like how he said, "I'm not just Mister Money in the Bank." I guess due to his Puerto Rican heritage, he's Senor Money in the Bank.
There we go.
So Damian
There we go.
Priest, I do respect him. He's got an aura about him. I mean, as much as I like LA Knight, and I've got nothing but admiration for all the competitors involved. Damian Priest, I think they're looking to push him
Hmm.
very heavily, and I think it's apparent by him being the winner.
He looks like a WWE guy, doesn't he? I'm
Yeah,
not
he's
saying
got
that
the
LA Knight
size.
doesn't or anything like. Yeah, but he looks like a WWE guy. He looks like somebody they could easily. I mean, he looks good. He can talk. He's decent enough in the ring. Like you said, Tyler, he's got the size. I think he'd be very easy to merchandise as well. I think he's the sort of guy
Oh,
that
absolutely.
X amount of years ago, Vince McMahon would have pushed to the moon. So he's very much a WWE sort of cookie cutter kind of guy in a way, isn't he?
Yeah, because Vince likes people who can talk. He also likes size. I mean, not
Of
that he's
course, yeah.
not went with people that are smaller, but we all know the MO. That's why it was difficult for when Jericho got there,
Hmm.
for like Dean Malenko, some of those guys, because even though they were great wrestlers, unfortunately they didn't have the height, they didn't have the weight, and a lot of times, luckily they came in at a later period because remember when Vince was going for the bodybuilders? I mean, Ultimate Warrior. I mean, you had to kind of look pleasing and have the
Yeah,
physiques, even if you didn't have a lot of technical ability. No knock against Warrior, but let's face it, he wasn't going to be scientific in the ring. It's just that's the
definitely
way
not.
it is. Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's not Bret Hart or anything or a Shawn Michaels, so I mean I think
Mm.
that's apparent. But it's a good representation. Damian Priest encapsulates the sports entertainment aspect because even though I still view it as wrestling. I kind of get why they pair themselves or characterize themselves as more sports entertainment because it's not just wrestling. They are looking for other aspects to really promote, and that that's why you get sponsorship. You get the branding. You get maybe other fans that aren't necessarily wrestling fans to latch on and go, hey, I can find something I'm entertained by, and I'm not even a
Mm.
wrestling fan, but it's got something for everybody. It's like they've got a variety in a sense.
Yeah, and obviously you get the crossover with regards to the Puerto Rico audience and so on that we saw at was it Backlash, I believe, was there, wasn't it? Is
Yeah,
that the pay-per-view?
Backlash.
Yeah, and that,
Yes,
again, that
sir.
crowd is insane, so you've got that aspect there. Uh,
They were great.
Very quickly then, we saw a little bit of, shall we say, shenanigans on Raw after this with regards to the briefcase and Finn Balor and, Dominic Mysterio wrestling Seth Rollins, at least the world champion in the main event, and then an altercation between Priest and Balor as well. Where do you think, as somebody who watches WWE every week, who'd be far more, educated on this topic than I, where do you think we are going with this? Where does this leave us?
It's a complicated question because my logic would be maybe Finn Balor's going to be the good guy, but I'm not sure. I think Damian Priest, as good of a heel that he's been, I think you could position him to be a top star. We're not just talking main event, like you say, merchandising. He's got the complete package as far as his promo skills, what he can do in the ring. He's unique looking. He's also got a unique
Yeah.
presentation with his wrestling style. Nothing against Finn. I love Finn Balor, and I know Finn's been a babyface before and very successful. But I kind of like Finn being more the villain here,
I
and
agree.
maybe
Yeah.
having them feud. I think it's Priest's time. I think he's went back to the bad guy scenario, and I just see him maybe even being a tweener, even if they don't turn him full babyface, maybe being somebody that's in the tweener role, kind of like Scott Hall. He's doing the Razor's Edge, the Razor Ramon stuff. I could kind of see some parallels, even though they're two different characters. Because I can tell Priest has got admiration for the bad guy, and hey,
Hmm.
more power to him because we all admire Scott Hall, man.
Oh,
Whether you know
without
him
a
as
doubt.
Razor or the outsider. And talk about a guy that had knowledge for the business. I didn't realize it till listening to other podcasts and really gauging. This guy knew how to get people over. He also knew how to get characters, help other people. And that's for
Without a doubt.
another show, but it all relates kind of since we're talking about it. Any excuse I get to bring up like Scott Hall or Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels or anybody, we're going to do it. Let's be fair.
Indeed, indeed. The next contest then was for the women's tag team titles. We saw a title switch here. We had Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez winning the championships. But the big talking point, Tyler, really, that I think we need to touch upon is what happened with regards to Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Now, my wife is a
Yeah.
massive Baszler fan. She has been singing her praises from the hills for years. Thinks this woman, and I totally agree. She is this woman is fantastic. I'm amazed it's taken them this long to really give her a prominent position and a prominent role on the main roster. But turning on Rousey the way she did, then the promo she cut on Raw Monday night, saying that I've paid my dues to get here, you haven't. You were handed WrestleMania. I had to set rings up and wrestle in front of 30 people. It's an interesting dynamic for me because they're really playing on what I think some people actually say about Rousey away from the wrestling business, in that it was all handed to her. What were your thoughts,
Right.
first of all, on this match? Did you enjoy this match? I mean, for me, it was okay. It was just kind of there. It wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't terrible. The big talking point, though, for me is the Baszler Rousey split. What were your thoughts?
Oh, it has to be a big talking point, but I'm with you. I think it was just kind of to fill and have another match. In other words, let me correct myself there. It's just taking nothing away from either team. I think it was decent. But to me, Shayna Baszler, I think people have been missing that sort of aggression by her. I think, and I haven't truly appreciated her immense talents and capabilities. And I'll say the same thing about Rousey, even though it's true why that promo resonated, because a lot of fans feel that way, especially the smart fans and people who follow this stuff. They and some of Rousey's comments have made people have drew the ire of a lot of
Yeah.
the wrestling community to where they feel like she should have respected it more. I get she's been in MMA, she's this big UFC star, she's brought the sort of cross branding appeal, and with Endeavor, you know, there's talks maybe she goes back into the octagon. So that's interesting, knowing that both those
Mm.
entities are under the same management with WWE and USC. But I think for Shayna, this is her moment. I think too, it's good on Rousey because I think we may get the match at SummerSlam. Yeah, I agree, Sharon. She has the it factor for sure. I mean, I've got all the time in the world for Shayna. And I thought that segment's what they needed. As cool as the turn was, that moment at Money in the Bank, you're so correct, Side. The promo, the sparring, it wasn't really a spar. It was Shayna dominating Rousey on the
Yes.
mic. And you don't often see that, but I think we need more credibility to the storylines where they are real life friends, but you can kind of see the parallels and say, hey, well, even friendships have their fractures, and
Yeah, of course.
there's
Yeah.
and that's what's good about wrestling. You want to suspend your disbelief, and I think they're doing a better job, regarding this sort of situation. So I think Shayna is going to do great. I think she's due for a women's title. I think that's where she's headed. She's going to possibly get a win over Rousey. I don't see why Rousey needs it if they're going to have a match. I think she'll put over Baszler. That's just me. And I think, for those who criticize Rousey, I'll just say this. I think Rousey loves it. It may be her passion this second run was a little tainted because it's not maybe the passion she had for her first run wasn't present. I'm starting to wonder. I'm not saying that's true.
Okay.
I don't want to speculate, but that's always kind of an interesting perspective. I've kind of tried to take myself back and see where she's coming from, maybe how the creative wanted to play into this. And so there's a lot of ways you can go about it. It's so complex, but I enjoy it because it's really got me thinking. Like yourself, where can they go with this? I just think for Baszler, this is the Baszler everybody fell in love with in NXT, where she's just dangerous,
Yes.
man. She's kind of
Yep.
being Rousey against Rousey, if you think about it. This was the way they wanted to present Rousey, but even with the volume turned up a little bit more. Due to the
Mm.
segment on Raw too, and what she did at Money in the Bank. I mean, it was impressive because the fans. That's when you know a turn worked because they weren't expecting it. And to be honest, I wasn't either. When she attacked her from behind and the
No, I
ref
wasn't.
even looked shocked, I was like, man, my reaction was I was as shocked as everyone else, which
It was a
means it
funny
was good. It was
time as
effective.
well. It was a funny
It
time to
was.
do
It
it as
was an odd
well.
time. Yeah.
It was more. I, to me, the Baszler Rousey tag team was always together for them to eventually split and face off. That's the way I always felt about that tag team. I imagined them to hold on to the belts for quite a while, maybe look quite dominant, and then the split would happen and we get a series of matches between the two. Apparently, Rousey has said that she's leaving sooner rather than later. So that is why they've kind of hurried the angle up rather than letting them have this long running dominant tag run. But the timing of it, that kind of explains the timing of it with regards to, day, week, month, whatever. But the timing in the match was very surreal. Now, I know Rousey
What's
made a
different?
blind, yeah, she made a blind tag to Shayna, and that caused Shayna to lose her shit, but then cost them both the title. It just seemed to really, I mean, I'm not
The
complaining.
psychology was reversed a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very strange. Yeah, but I mean, I'm all about seeing Shayna Baszler. I mean, again, Dan
Oh,
Griffin
me as well.
in the chat here. Dan says, I think we're going to see Rousey and Baszler Rousey put Baszler over at SummerSlam on her way out the door. Yeah,
I
I agree.
agree.
I agree. And then Tyler, you mentioned there about Baszler going on and having a good singles title run. Just think about that. Baszler, Rhea Ripley, take my
Oh
money.
man. Oh my gosh, yeah, especially after that match. And I know we're talking Money in the Bank, but if you guys didn't get a chance to watch Raw, as much as I like, Lesnar coming back, and I'm happy Drew's back, and Gunther, that's going to be another. Just take my money, be an
Yeah.
awesome matchup. But to have Rhea Ripley take on Baszler, but man, Natalia, I think Natalia's kind of been held back a little bit because we
Okay.
saw that Ripley and Natalia brought the best out of each other. And I think that was a tease in the first place. That's why all these squash matches to build up Natalia to be even more
Mm-hmm.
opposing to Rhea Ripley. And man, they were hitting harder. It was a stiffer match. I think Rhea Ripley posted on social media she lost a piercing out of her mouth. It was that hard
Oh my
hitting.
word. Okay.
It was impressive. I mean, and Natalia can hold her own. I don't care if she seems at a disadvantage with somebody as impressive as Ripley. There's something about the Hart family, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. They're going to be tough, man. And it's
Mm-hmm.
even with the ladies too of that family and Rhea Ripley. My goodness, I want to see another encounter, not right away, but I thought I would get tired of it. But after the match on Raw, I was like, to be
Yes.
fair, we got Seth Rollins on the program, but this was my favorite match. This
Yeah, it was
was
very good.
so good. Yeah. So that's
Really,
why
I
I
really
bring it
enjoyed
up.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Moving on then from the ladies division, we go across to see. Well, the result was Gunter, sorry, beating Matt Riddle
I can't pronounce it. Yeah.
for the defending and keeping his Intercontinental Championship via submission. Shortest match on the card, I think it was. The
Yeah.
psychology,
Very brief.
the storyline, and so on. The story they're trying to tell was pretty straightforward, which isn't a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. You know, Riddle has an issue with his ankle. It was worked upon. Guy eventually taps out. It was kind of what you'd expect, I think, with regards to Gunter and his IC
Sure.
title run at the moment. And then, of course, the big news from this moment was the return of Drew McIntyre, who, I mean, I'm a completely, red-blooded straight male, but my God, he looked amazing, didn't he?
He did, and I'm straight too, but I see what the ladies can envision. I mean, he
Without
looks
a doubt.
like he's a Greek
Without a
god
doubt.
out of a movie. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
he
exactly.
does. He looks like one of those war movies in Scotland or England. He could be cast. I mean, he's got the look, and I'm happy for Drew because all the rumors, and I was guilty into playing into that, thinking he was leaving or there was creative issues, but apparently in the press conference afterwards, he and Triple H were having a good laugh at the expense of a lot of the journalists, and I have to laugh at myself because he was saying that it was an injury, and I guess it should have gave it away that
Okay.
Drew was in Berlin for the Special Olympics, that he was still part of the company. So eventually he was going to return. They were just ready. They were just part of me waiting for the right moment, and it makes sense in the UK, London, and I'll tell
Mm.
you the fans, the reaction, and the women. I mean, on Raw, one of them said, "Take your top off," and Drew was laughing. He was like, "Okay, you calm down," and paraphrasing. I mean, if I looked like Drew McIntyre, I'd be, "Yeah, thank you," I appreciate
If
it,
I look like Drew
So that
McIntyre, I wouldn't own a shirt.
I
I
wouldn't
wouldn't
either.
care how
I'd be walking around. I would.
Exactly,
I wouldn't be
exactly.
as embarrassed. I would go around. But anyways, not to get too weird. But hey, it's fitting. I mean, it is Drew McIntyre. For all those fans, we'll get some of his. But I thought it was very effective because due to the rumors, due to thinking maybe
Mhm.
he'll show up at the other London event for AEW. And I would have thought that, I would have been all for it. I just feel like, man, Drew fits WWE. I kind of think there's a
Yeah,
certain brand. He just
yeah.
does. His road to getting back there from where he was one of Vince McMahon's chosen ones, and you could see why. And he just what he's been able to do from his journey in NXT to being the champion. Unfortunately, Drew never got fans. It was right
Mm.
after the pandemic hit.
Well,
That's what I felt so bad for him,
that's what I was going to ask about
being
actually.
champion.
We have Drew returning here. Big reaction in the it'd have been a big reaction in the UK or otherwise, but still UK big reaction, of course. Nose to nose with Gunter, IC Championship, that kind of division, that kind of level. Is now the experiment of Drew McIntyre as a main eventer passed us by? Are we done with that idea? Or is this something maybe we can revisit? Now we've got two world titles as opposed to just Reigns holding the championship. Because I mean, Drew, you say that about never being able to have the fans and so on. Drew carried that main event scene on his back throughout the
No,
pandemic
he
to
did.
a degree. Obviously Reigns because of his issues and COVID and so on, quite rightly stayed at home. Brock hasn't got to work regardless, dropped the belt to McIntyre and so on. But are we over now with McIntyre in the main event picture? Is he one of these guys who's going to challenge but never quite win the belt? Is he going to be like a headliner on a B level pay per view going forward, or is this his level now? Is kind of the question I'm asking.
No, I don't think so at all. I think that I like how you put it. It's to revisit. Like you said, now with these multiple titles, you've got the opportunity to make it work. And yeah, Drew McIntyre taking nothing away from Gunther, the Intercontinental title picture. Like we said, that's going to be a fantastic affair in the side of the ring. I just feel like Drew McIntyre's got a lot more time left to be a main eventer, to be a champion, to challenge, to be chasing a title. What's Dan saying? McIntyre to beat Gunther? Sheamus to beat McIntyre? Hey, that'll work. Yeah, Grand Slam. That's an interesting concept. I'd be for it. But yeah, I see Drew continuing to be a top star and a top pitcher. And hey, the Intercontinental title, I'm glad they're giving it the respect
Yes.
back that it deserves. And that's why I think it's not a bad idea. Gunther eventually, to me, is going to be a world champion, but they added prestige when they put the Intercontinental title on the Gunther, taking nothing away from Lashley and other people that I think had it before. It's just he's somebody new. He's somebody that's the in-ring general, that he respects the mat, and that's always kind of been the working title, like a U.S. title, the kind of upper mid card. So
Hmm.
that's your shot at getting into the world heavyweight title picture. So I agree. I think Gunther, McIntyre, both those guys, I think they're going to be main eventers, and it's not over for Drew. I think this is just a good restart, because even the
Yeah.
great
Okay.
ones need a restart. You look at throughout the history books.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I feel Gunther losing the IC title now would begin his ascension up the card. Whereas Drew, I feel for now at least, that's kind of the level he's going to be at for now. Because not everyone can main event. There's only so many spots. And you look at Seth and you look at everyone else who's around there, I don't think it'll come for a little while. But I do feel eventually then it will return. I mean, the guy, again, similar to Damian
Yeah,
Priest we were talking about, he looks WWE, doesn't he? He looks like a WWE main event guy,
yeah, he
and
represents what they want.
yeah, he can work heel, face. He can, he can talk. He looks fantastic. He can wrestle. He ticks all the boxes again, doesn't he? I suppose. Okay.
Yeah, he
Speaking
does.
of main event guys, Tyler, up next we have someone who returned and was very much, quickly thrust into the main event picture, but is now kind of working a few other programs before, I believe, heading back towards the main event picture, and that's Cody Rhodes. Kind of predicted, kind of easy to guess how this match would go. He's always going to beat Dominic Mysterio, wasn't he? I mean,
Yeah, I would
Dominic,
think he's got to go over Dominic.
yeah, Dominic. I think that the heel heat Dominic gets, it's not going to get hurt him taking the defeat. He's not going to have any issues getting beaten. But whereas I think Cody needed that win.
Yeah, Cody needed a win because I think we're seeing what's going to continue. I think everybody knows it's probably going to be SummerSlam, Lesnar, Cody 3. And Dominic, man, I'll tell you what, too, me and Benny's talked about it side too. I know you've noticed, man, the reactions. He can't hardly talk. I mean, Dominic is getting some tremendous heat. I think the alignment with Rhea Ripley being mommy and Dominic being kind of like Eddie and all the comparisons has worked in their favor, because it's just kind of updated, and Dominic's getting better and better in the ring, and it's because he's able to work with some of these stellar opponents like
Mm-hmm.
Cody Rhodes, like Seth Rollins the following night, and previously like his dad at WrestleMania, and an Edge, to be in there with Edge and Beth Phoenix. It's Hall of Famers, so it's only helping him, and even with the new talent that are becoming stars like Damian Priest and Finn Balor, he's learning from them. So I think it's good that he's separated from his dad, and he's learning how to get over, not just over as a babyface. You got to get over as the heel too, and that's working, because people are chanting some worse terms at him, which is good because you want it. That's the whole purpose of being the hated heel, and Dominic is doing wonders. He's so impressive, and he
Mm-hmm.
keeps getting better, just like I said. But yeah, Cody needed to win, because now you've got Brock. It's going to be very fascinating to see what they do with the finish at SummerSlam, or even if they do it before or after SummerSlam. And if there's going to be a stipulation, you would think maybe they're going to put another stipulation on it. And they're 1-1, I think, is Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know we've still got some time. So it makes you wonder how that's going to go, due to what we saw on Raw, him coming out and them, the Beast and the American Nightmare fighting. But Cody getting that, what was it, a Cody Cutter that Brock,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
took. So that was a pretty cool segment, because it looked like Cody Rhodes was going to challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. And then we got Dominic later, Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley responding for Dom. I love that whole interaction. It just entertains me. And
Dirty
I got
Dom.
to admit, I know it's Buddy Matthews' girl. We're talking AEW. But I'm envious of Dominic, because Rhea Ripley's intimidating. She could kick your tail, but she is also very pretty. So she's got the whole
Indeed.
package, man. She does. I mean, I got to admit, that's all I'll say without getting it. But going back to Cody, love that he got the win, but I was happy for Dominic, and I think it's cool. Second generation guys. I forget
Mhm.
about it. Going at it. I think that's cool in itself.
The feeling I get
So
with Cody is he is still going to climb that mountain. This isn't it for him. He is still going to go on and win the big one that his dad never did, so to speak. But I feel they're giving him challenges to overcome before he reaches that now. Because, I mean, he wins the Rumble, he comes back, wins the title at WrestleMania. That would have been kind of, we wouldn't have got any of the great bloodline stuff we've had since then. The fans, I imagine, would have turned on Cody very, very quickly. Whereas now, we're a few months on from that. He's had to overcome some challenges. He steps up to Seth Rollins on Raw, gets interrupted again. So there's another detour on his little journey to the world title. He's had to turn left again rather than going straight ahead towards the world championship. And
yeah, for sure.
all of a sudden, we've got a baby face on our hands here. We've got a guy who is genuinely, apart from our friend Dan Griffin, who can't stand Cody. We've got we've got a genuine babyface. The crowd love him, the kids love him, and it's very rare, I think, for WWE. And you look back through the times where Reigns was on top, then Cena before him. That you had that mixed reaction all the time because it felt like those guys were being shoved down our throats. Cody, it feels more okay. It's booked in a way to make us cheer for him, of course it is. But the crowd reactions and so on, it feels a bit more organic. It feels a bit more like
Yeah, that's a
this is
perfect word,
our good guy.
organic. Yeah.
It feels like this is our good guy.
It does. It feels like, he's kind of mimicking, even though he's his own person, kind of the American dream, if you will, the common man, but in a
Mm,
newer way. He's Cody Rhodes, the American nightmare. He's got a lot of the Dusty-isms because he can cut the promos, man. Whether they're scripted or not, you can say all you want to. Cody gets the messages conveyed to the audience, even those who are watching at home. He knows how to articulate, even if you're kind of questioning where is he going. He delivers. He lands the plane, so to speak. I love how the segment on Raw, he cut it short with the new interviewer. I thought it was cool how he put her over. I thought that shows you the professionalism and makes you respect him even more. I mean, he's a baby face anyways, and he's also wanting to, make sure people recognize what she's doing as the interviewer. I think that's not been done a lot, or if any, in a long time at least. So that right away was a takeaway. And I just think, man, Cody Rhodes, he at first he admitted I'm afraid of Brock, but now we're seeing, hey, I don't care if Lesnar is going to show up all the time. We'll fight. So
yeah.
it's already turning into he's going to be ready. He's going to be more prepared. He's going to be a fighter, and like you say, he's signing kids' belts. You're seeing him do that before he goes to the entranceway to exit. And I mean, he's personifying, like you said, that hero, that babyface, and it does take good booking, but like you said, Si, it's got to come naturally from the people,
Hmm.
and that's
Yep.
how you can tell it's working.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Overall, good match though. Again, less than 10 minutes, did the job. Cody goes over. Dominic's not hurt by
Yeah,
the loss, so yeah, right result
no,
for me.
and I think we get caught up too much in losses. I know I did in the past, where sometimes it's good to lose strongly because it makes, like you said, it doesn't hurt Dominic at all.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Next up, then we had the ladies' Money in the Bank ladder match. Now,
Yeah, we
this
did.
again, I enjoyed. This was great. I think some of the bumps that the ladies took, I don't think I know. It made me cringe. There were some bumps that were like,
Me
oh my
too.
word, because like
Mhm.
just by the nature of the situation, you see these performers here in the ladies division. They are smaller and they are slighter than the men. So when they're
Mhm.
hitting these ladders, when they're hitting these tables, it's almost it comes across much worse at times than when the men do it, because the men almost seem like they're able to absorb the hit more, maybe. But
Yeah,
the biggest thing I want to talk about from this, Tyler, is
yeah,
unless of course there's anything else you want to bring up, is the finish. Because we've seen
right.
so many little bit of an internet problem there. Am I
Mhm.
back? Are we back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're back.
okay. Can you hear me?
You're back. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great stuff. You'll have my internet dropped out for a second then. Apologies.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Where did I get
No,
to?
you're all right.
Where did you hear me? Where did you hear me?
It was the
Where,
women's Money in the Bank. We were talking the finish and some of the spots. Yeah.
yes. Okay. So the finish of the women's Money in the Bank is something I really want to address because since WrestleMania 10, we've seen multiple ladder matches. We've seen numerous multi-man ladder matches. God knows how many
Oh, we
Money in the
have.
Bank matches themselves, TLC matches, and all this crazy stuff. To have a unique finish in a ladder match, I think, is now virtually impossible. Nothing in wrestling is original anyway. It's always taken from something else somewhere along
Yeah,
the line.
it's always borrowed. Yeah.
Yes, of course. But this finish, I thought, was pretty unique. It's not something we've seen, as far as I can think, Tyler.
I've not seen it. I'm with you. I think a lot of us have not. That's what I enjoyed about the match, as much as the match overall was good, with Trish and Zoe Stark, attacking Becky, and I like that how they don't always have to start in the ring. You got ladders
Hmm.
anyway. It's a different environment with the way it's presented. I do enjoy how Io Sky handcuffed both Bailey and Becky. You thought those
Yeah,
two
there
were
you
going to
go.
be ended, and she outsmarted them. And the handcuffs were introduced, I think, originally speaking, of Zoe Stark and Trish Stratus. They were gonna do it to Becky, and I think they did. Yeah, but like you said, a lot of the risks they took, meaning spots, did make you cringe. And I think it was that power bomb that Selena Vega executed on Zoe
Mm.
Stark on the ladder. The manhandle slam even looked pretty rough with Trish Becky doing it. I mean, I get it; they have to entertain us, but it makes you just hurt yourself even without being in pain. But overall, I thought the finish was great. And another team that is also showing fractures that I love the storytelling process that it entails is Damage Control. Dakota Kai's injured. We see where Io Sky was doing the same treatment she's been getting from Bailey.
Yeah.
So it's telling that story within. That's what I love. You got the stories within the story, because you got Becky going after Trish and Zoe. You've got Selena, getting involved. Excuse me, and gosh almighty, they've got so many competitors in this match. I'm trying to look to see who else. Maybe I'm leaving somebody else. It feels like there
Oh,
was
yeah, I
somebody
mean,
else I'm maybe leaving out, but
Io Sky,
I
Bailey,
apologize. My memory.
Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, Selena Vega, and Zoe Stark.
So I did get them all. It always feels like
There
in,
we go.
in these kind of matches you're either
Well, there was
leaving somebody
six.
else or. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So yeah, six.
there
Okay.
was six. There was six in the ladies, but there were seven in the men. So it does feel a little, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, little uneven, but no. Hey, that's why I got size here, and he helped me out because I was trying to make sure I got everybody mentioned. But it was I was impressed. I think Trish really showed out. You can say what you want to about the match with Becky Lynch. She did
Well, there
good.
you go,
Yeah,
Dan. Sorry to
Dan
interrupt,
Griffin.
Tyler.
Yeah,
Dan
shout
Griffin in
out.
the chat there.
Yeah,
Dan
no,
Griffin in
go
the chat.
ahead.
Shout out to Trish Stratus in the Money in the Bank match. Part timer, 47 years of age, oldest woman's Money in the Bank competitor. Busted nose, and she killed it. And she did. She was
She
superb.
did. She did. Busting nose. Absolutely. No, I'm glad Dan interrupted. We love the comments, so we appreciate them. And I'll tell you what. And I don't mean to sound weird. Still looks amazing. I mean,
Oh,
Trish
without
is
a doubt.
just
Without a doubt.
that's why I'm like the commentators and fans. Thank you, Trish. Just to see her
Exactly.
is it's worth it. I'm
So
just going to be real, but
going forward, I know the women's division was something you wanted to touch upon before we started recording today. It was something you said you wanted to discuss. Where are we heading with regards to Io Sky as the briefcase? We've got Rhea
Mhm.
Ripley as the champion on the one brand, Oscar as the champion on the other. Becky
Yeah.
Lynch looks like she's going into a program with Trish Stratus, probably heading towards SummerSlam now. I feel everything is going to be more geared towards the show in Detroit
Right.
in maybe
Going to the
4 weeks,
next
5
PLA.
weeks. Yeah.
I think it's
So
1st of August.
yeah, so that ties up Trish and Becky Lynch, I assume. The women's title itself, Rhea Ripley, where do you feel that's going? Damage Control, we've got issues there. The state of the women's division, specifically on Raw, then, what are your thoughts on that?
I think Io Sky, with that confrontation her and Rhea had backstage, I think I think it's very clever. Io Sky was saying, "Hey, I can cash in any time." You couldn't understand her. Rhea could, but it was speaking Japanese, meaning no disrespect, but it
Mm.
adds an allure to it, a
Yes.
mystique, because you don't necessarily know what. So I'm kind of understanding that a little better, and I think with Io, it's probably going to come down to Io and Rhea. Becky Lynch also confronted her, I think, the previous week on Raw. So there's I'm like you're saying, Si, there's so much going on right now transpiring. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. I think we'll definitely maybe get Bailey and Io Scott one point, or Bailey. One of them's going to cost the other again. They're going to probably
Hmm.
continue this. Also, you got Shotzi. They cut her hair, so she's still a part of. Even people
Oh
not in
yes,
the
of
title
course.
picture, and then Bianca Belair has got involved with Charlotte and Asuka. So I think
Mm.
we're going to get some kind of triple threat. It looks like, because I would find it hard pressed. Or if you have Bianca versus Asuka or Charlotte, maybe Asuka or the other interfere somehow. You kind of, I mean, it's kind of hard to look at how they're going to book the finishes or book the way the matches are going to be laid out. So
Me personally, and again, you watch the modern day product every week. My knowledge of modern day
yeah,
WWE is based solely upon listening to your good self and BenNy every week on this show. So that's where I
I
get
appreciate
my
it.
knowledge from. But I can't see Rhea Ripley losing the women's championship anytime soon.
Yeah,
So I think that's locked in on her for quite a while because she's doing such a great job. I can't
she
see
is.
Io Sky holding onto the briefcase for 240 odd days like Carmella did or whatever, having a really long run holding the briefcase. So do we get a scenario where Io Sky tries to cash in on Ripley and Bailey screws it up for her? So then the briefcase is not, we don't need to worry about that anymore, and that they can further their storyline whilst not affecting Rhea Ripley's title reign itself. That could potentially add to the stories going in different directions, maybe.
No, it could. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting directions they could go. And I think eventually we could, Rhea versus Becky Lynch. I think they did it in NXT. I would love to see it on the main roster. I mean, once the Trish stuff gets done, I think Zoe Stark has impressed me. She's definitely, the promo skills are gonna have to come a long way, but that's why she's with Trish and some other people to help establish herself. I mean, definitely talented in the ring. That's just my perspective on it. But I feel like Bianca too. Maybe she should turn heel. I know everybody's talking about it, but she's getting more of the attitude. And I'll tell you, the exchange she had on the Grayson Waller effect a while back
Hmm.
between her and Charlotte was some good stuff, because it didn't seem like it was too forced. Like you said, it came out organic. It was a nice segment. And after what we saw in the SmackDown in London, I kind of like to see Bianca and Charlotte even in a singles match, even without Asuka, and then program Asuka. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many ways you could look at this. I mean, that's why it's so hard to really find a correct answer to how you could book it. But I like what you pointed out.
I know we're going on a bit of a detour here, and I apologize to everyone who wanted Money in the Bank stuff, but you mentioned Bianca Belair there. The segment on SmackDown the other week when she was banned from ringside, and then she bought a
Mhm.
ticket and sat at ringside with a ticket. Now that is an old wrestling trope. It's been done for decades and so on. It's a really clever way of getting around your band from ringside and all that. And I get a kick out of seeing that because again, it's a throwback to older past times. Bianca Belair though, and I apologize, Tyler. I don't want to upset you here or rock the boat with us or anything because I know you're a big fan. But my goodness, did she annoy me? The constant waving of it's like, okay, we get the idea. You've got a ticket, and then she jumps the barricade, and this isn't a Belair complaint, it's more of a WWE complaint. She's effectively a ticket buying customer. That's the role she is playing at this moment. But she jumps the barricade and no security try and stop her. And it's little touches like that that irritate me a little bit.
Yeah, because you want it to feel real, and I get that.
Yes, of
In
course.
real time,
Yes.
I'm not paying attention. You want to suspend your disbelief, so get the officials, get those break apart segments to where it feels like
Hmm.
you've got to have some authority there, but you got to let them get involved. And so I see what you're saying and implying. I mean, you want to make it feel real, even though we know it's on TV. Even though it's got a sports presentation, it's still got the entertainment aspect where
Yes.
it's television. Even for house shows, you're still seeing different stuff, even though those are presented differently than what you see on TV. So, no, I'm with you. I think I get caught up in watching the match and even seeing it. Then until you tell me right then, I have to go back because I don't know. It don't always click, but it makes sense. It needs to feel real, and I think that's been the
Okay.
complaint with WWE and a lot of stuff, AEW, a lot of companies. But that's where unfortunately it's a little too scripted at times, where it needs to
Yes.
feel
Yep.
a little bit loose, a little bit more of a live feeling. Even if you can, even if you're expecting it, you want a sense of danger. And I think
Yeah.
that's why you'll see certain fans have a gripe, and I get it. I have I've voiced my opinions on it, but I guess I'm kind of to the point we were talking with Cornette and a lot of these guys that we all admire, and with Bruce Pritchard, excuse me, or Jim Ross, that where you have to let things evolve. But I do agree there should have been security or something, but where some of the ideas kind of have to filter a little bit, and it shows you, it represents and it's an indication of modern day wrestling. I don't
Mm.
agree with it, but I think that that's a prime example of why
Yeah.
everything's a little too forced or a little too phony at times, or not so much phony as it's predictable. And that's
Mm.
where I can see where even I get frustrated. I'm like, why is she just coming? I like the action, what we got, the KOD on Charlotte, on the table spot with Asuka, but let's have some security. Let's have some officials come out to where it feels like there's a sense of danger. They didn't expect it either, where they're just kind of backstage, oh, we knew this was going to happen in
Exactly.
comparison. So I totally
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
Yeah. Spot on. Back to Money in the Bank then. 2 matches left for us to touch upon. The next one, and this is a bit of a shame for me because this is for the World Heavyweight Championship, gets just over 12 minutes on the program. And it never really felt to me at any point we were going to see a title change.
I just didn't see it.
Not that I wanted one. I'm a big Seth Rollins fan, but at least going into the pay-per-view or premiere live event or whatever bullshit, going into the pay-per-view, I kind of at least want an inkling of, okay, I'm 95% certain Seth's going to keep the belt, but what if? But I never had that at all going into this, and it felt like again, it was a great match. I mean, Rollins is fantastic, Finn Balor is
Oh, it was.
fantastic. It was a really, really good contest for the time they had, but it almost felt like the world title was maybe a secondary notion here to further the Judgment Day dramatics, politics, inner arguing, if that makes sense. What did you think of this
It,
match, Tyler? And am I barking up the wrong tree?
no, I think you're onto something. It was to probably further along more the Judgment Day storyline, even though it had a lot of great background to it, with knowing how Finn really did have to relinquish the title. And I didn't, like I said, there was years where I missed where BenNy or maybe somebody else could catch me up on it. I didn't realize that Seth did actually laugh at him when he came out. That's back when Seth was kind of being more the heel, and I guess Finn was more your face here. So it brought some intriguing dynamics to the dichotomy of the psychology and everything, the story going into the matchup, which I think is all vital. But yeah, this to me really was just kind of to get us to, well, Finn may cash in the Money in the Bank. You've got the disagreements with Balor and Finn, the hesitation on the top rope where he was going to hit the stomp. But Seth Rollins, him and Finn, to see them have a match, it was a shame because that's what I've heard, a reoccurring theme, that it was cut short. That's why possibly. And you had the main event that they should have gave them at least a little more time, where it felt like they didn't because of the Judgment Day scenario. And Seth, it's so intriguing what they're going to do with both these guys, because it looks like we're not finished. If you
Mm-hmm.
watch Raw, not just with Judgment Day, what their problems, but also Seth and Finn and Damian. So,
Well, that
and
was
after, yeah, that's another thing.
sorry, Tyler. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
go ahead. Yeah.
that was something else I was going to ask about, because obviously, again, you watch the modern product every week. I mean, again, first of all, apologies if anyone heard any background noise then. Next door's cat. The cat doesn't even live here. It's next door's cat. Likes to sleep on the bed behind me. Doesn't even live here. And he's now decided halfway through our show to jump down, crash into a load of stuff, and leave. So that was lovely of him. So if you heard any background noises, I
Well,
apologize for that.
he
But
was inspired by Money in the Bank. Just
there you
say
go.
that he was doing one of those spots.
There you go. But
Uh,
I'm a big. Whenever I talk modern day wrestling with anyone, be it AEW or whatever, or even going back and talking more the nostalgia based with Nitro Nights and so on with Scottish
mhm.
Danny, the big question I always ask when people ask me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? The big thing in my mind is, where do we go next? because you can have a great moment in professional wrestling, which is fantastic and gets replayed over and over and over again, as Cody beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania could have been. It would have been a great moment, but where do we go next? That's the big thing that we have from that. Now, with regards to Seth Rollins, where do we go next? Because it looks like Cody and Lesnar are tied up now going into SummerSlam. So does that leave does that leave Seth as, I don't want to say a spare part, but the story almost seems to me, with the little of the modern product I've seen in this last week, is Damian Priest, Finn Balor, the briefcase, Judgment Day inner arguments. That almost makes me feel like our World Heavyweight Champion is a spare part in this story, or a background character, so to speak, in this story. So my argument here is, or my question, I suppose, sorry, is after Money in the Bank and after what happened on Raw with regards to Lesnar, Cody, and then the Judgment Day stuff with Rollins, where's Rollins going next? Because where does he drop in the card? It must be more Judgment Day stuff. But
And
surely
that's
as
what
the
I'm thinking.
world champion, surely as the world champion, he should be more of a focal point of the story. What do you think, Tyler?
He should, but I'm with you. I think he's a background right now to what Judgment Day's doing because I don't think that's over. I do, I wish I could foresee who his opponent is going to be next after all this. Well, Seth at Finn at SummerSlam again. I could see it, or Priest in a triple threat.
Mm.
Also, a likely scenario with the briefcase. So yeah, Dan Griffin with another astute observations. This is another one that it's complex. It's very intricate because with ways you could go about it. But I do feel like it's more the basis. Unfortunately, Seth's getting kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit because of the Judgment Day. What's going on here? But yet he's still a big part. I mean, I don't mean that disrespectful. Even I see what you're kind of laying out, and that's what makes it hard to answer. I don't mean to be disappointing on the podcast. It is really tough because I have to process these things. Because when somebody asks me some of these kind of long story or even short term story booking ideas, I have to really dissect it like anybody else and see, well, where could we get Seth? Maybe what can we do with Finn and Damian? But how are people not going to get tired of it? Because that's another risk you're going to run into. How long can you play this out? Because with no offense to Judgment Day, it's not like the Bloodline. It's not. You're
No,
not
no.
going to have enough, and that's where you may run into the problem. So I see them probably having to hurry this up a little bit, and maybe either get the triple threat like Dan's saying, maybe get Seth and Finn a rematch, or like you said, if Cody wasn't tied up with Lesnar, that'd be the next logical, I would think, on Raw as far as upper mid card, main event level people. So that's a tough one because I'm trying to think of the roster and think of who's on Raw and who could maybe compete against who would be a viable contender for Seth Rollins because Drew McIntyre's wrapped up in Gunther. He could be
Yes.
another guy, him or Gunther, but right now they're in a program. So as far as right now, I don't know who you would program. So anybody like you, Si, if you can think about anybody in the comments, it does help me because I'm trying to rack my brain. Who could it be? Maybe I'm just forgetting somebody at the moment, which it's pretty normal if you know me. So
I think Dan Griffin in the chat there is onto something with regards to Seth versus Finn at SummerSlam again. But
right.
my concern is that this is the new World Heavyweight Championship, and they're trying to make this belt seem a big deal, even though it's incredibly new. And it's apparently the lineage goes back to the world title Triple H had in 2002 or whatever nonsense. I don't know, but now present day, it's only been around 5 minutes. So to me, it's quite difficult to add prestige and importance to a championship that has only been around 5 minutes. You've got to be very careful what you do with how you book that title. You need to really make it feel important, because if it doesn't feel important in the first, say, 6 to 12 months, it's never going to feel important because it will get tarnished with that kind of that brush. Now, to me, the most obvious thing you can do with regards to making that belt feel important is to put it on Brock Lesnar, because then instantly it's main event level. I'm not saying Seth is not main event level, and Seth's
It
doing a
already
great job.
gives it that significance you're talking about.
Exactly. Now, if we have Seth versus Finn at SummerSlam again, I don't think. Again, we get all the nonsense from WWE, don't we? Oh, we got a double main event, a triple main event, a quadruple main event. Half the card is fucking main events, whatever. But
We do.
to me, Seth versus Finn. If you've got Cody and Lesnar, you've got bloodline stuff going on, you've got all other issues happening. Seth versus Finn doesn't feel like it goes on last at SummerSlam.
It
It
gets
doesn't
lost in the
feel like
shuffle.
yeah. So does that again hurt the world title that they're trying to build, maybe? And with regards to your points about the bloodline, in comparison to Judgment Day, do we get Finn beating Seth Rollins, being the world champion, with his Judgment Day partner, colleague, however you want to word it, holding that briefcase? Because there's story going forward in that, isn't there?
Yeah, you could also, make the argument, like you said, there's plenty of story that you could do with, and I actually enjoy that you brought that up as well, because it's a good way to look at it, a great perspective. And yeah, I think Seth, the whole Damien stuff is very interesting. I mean, as much as I like Seth Rollins and I love the sing-alongs
Yeah.
and I mean, it's awesome. And it took me a lot of time. I've told BenNy this to get used to Seth doing the Joker kind of character and laugh because at first I'm like this. I didn't like it. I just miss
I'm
Seth
not
like
a fan.
he first came out. Yeah, but you can say what you want to, but when that bell rings, man, he's still the
Oh,
same Seth Rollins. It's
100%.
incredible. But I get you because I'm kind of in the same boat with this gimmick though. I can't tell. There's sometimes I find it a little funny, and then it's like, well, it's a little too funny at times. There's a little too ha. If you're going to be champion, you can have a personality, but should it really be this? That's kind of where I
There
go.
you go.
I'm kind of like you with the old school. Not that it's got to be just old school, prehistoric, but you look at like Bachwinkle. You look at like Bret Hart. You look at the Shawn Michaels. He had a lot of the funny moments, but that's what I mean. I'm trying to even think of like NWA, AWA, and a lot of the
Hmm.
territory people as
Yep.
well, not just WWE, but like a Bruno and stuff, Buddy Rogers, stuff. So it's yeah, that's the thing, man. But I love Seth, and the thing is, I'm a little worried too. Now that you bring it up, is it going to be tarnished? Like you said, is this now due to all the Judgment Day? You've got WWE's doing such a good job with all these storylines. Does it kind of overshadow and overlook what Seth's able to do? I hope
Mm.
not. And I'm not saying they will or mean it deliberately. But like anything, you kind of create your own monster, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it's almost too good. And that may be what, like you're saying, what's happening to where Seth's just kind of going to be this moving part for Finn Balor, Damian Priest. So see, I wish I knew of another opponent that maybe returned or would come back that could challenge him. But I still see, with the way they're doing Finn and Damien, it's got to still be something to do with the Judgment Day
Yeah,
because
I
we're
think so.
not done yet. You don't want to just fast forward that. You want to continue it because like you say, you
Mm,
got SummerSlam, you've got Payback. You could possibly even continue it. I mean, a lot of
mm,
times they can. It don't have to be short term or just 3 months. You could find certain ways or twists. I mean, at least I'm speculating. I don't know.
No, I agree. Long title reigns. I'm a big fan of it. Adds prestige to the belt. It makes title changes mean more because they don't happen as often.
Yeah,
But I just worry that. I mean, even if Seth wins the title, say it's SummerSlam for argument's sake, he has
yeah,
been a mid card guy for so long.
right.
Does that then? I mean, effectively, people get. I suppose people get educated to what they see. They get they get the. I can't find the words. So I apologize, but you end up
Oh no.
the regularity of something becomes the norm, so to speak. Finn has
Yeah,
been
it does.
effectively a mid card guy for so long, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not here to debate that. But Finn has been a mid card guy for so long that if he wins the title, does that elevate him to world title level, or does that drag the new championship down to mid card level? That would be a concern of mine. But with
See,
regards to
yeah, I'm
oh,
I'm afraid it may not, and I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm afraid to
no,
your point,
please
it
carry
may
on.
not
Yeah.
elevate Finn. No, I'm afraid that may be the problem they run into. As much as I like Finn Balor, I have really felt bad for him because I feel like he's got jinxed, even with good creative, even being in Judgment Day,
Hmm.
even with the Damian Priest angle. I feel like even if he gets a belt, I don't know that it's going to help him. Maybe it's better if he's chasing it. I
Mm.
don't know, and I didn't think I would say that. I mean, it's just, But now that you're kind of giving the different side of it, I'm starting to wonder. I'm starting to question. How would you present him? I mean, how would you go from here? I mean,
Yeah,
it
there
really
you
is
go.
puzzling.
I,
And
I
I
agree with you.
apologize.
I agree with you
I
100%
played
as well, by
I
the way.
played a video, yeah, accidentally, and it came through. So I'm bad about back. It was a WWE video, and it had some kind of ad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I had this thing turned down, so it's my fault. I was playing one. Yeah.
If we get another copyright strike, I don't know if you're aware of this, Tyler, actually, to be fair, in the
Oh no.
corner with BenNy and his fantastic abilities, the technical side
Yeah.
of things, the intro he put together, the videos he used, the SJP World Media Network had its first ever full-on copyright strike from YouTube,
Oh
Facebook, and everywhere else because of BenNy's videos. So sadly, they need to stop. But we learn, we live and learn, we live and learn. So
yeah, we do. And I apologize. I did not realize that I was just. I thought I had everything turned down, and it's a common mistake, and
oh no,
apparently I
don't worry,
didn't.
don't worry, don't
So,
worry.
yeah.
So then, finishing up the main event of the evening, Tyler, and quite
Yes.
possibly, I don't want to say the best because I don't think it is, but in the conversation for one of the best wrestling storylines of all time. Am I okay to say that? Is that too big a big?
I think you're safe to say it. I mean, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, people know who Roman Reigns, or at least have heard of this bloodline scenario playing out on TV and wherever. I mean, it's mainstream media type material. So I think it definitely deserves to be mentioned in the conversation. I think you're safe to say it is.
This there's a couple of things I thought was with the placement of this match, not meaning as in closing the show because it should do. This is the main event. It doesn't matter whether it's in the middle of the card or
Right.
what. This is the main event. However, it felt odd being in the UK because it's such a big match that I thought they'd want it on US soil. I'm glad that wasn't the case. I'm glad I was wrong with that, but I thought that maybe something they would save back. Also, this Bloodline Civil War, the Usos versus this match itself, specifically the Usos versus
Hmm.
Reigns and Solo Sikoa, I felt it came around very quickly. Almost like
It
they could have
did.
saved this for SummerSlam. It almost like they could have had many more weeks of build up. It felt, I'm not saying rushed because it worked out fine in the end, but it felt like it came around fairly quickly.
Kind of sped it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the match itself then and the whole situation with the bloodline, and I suppose, and this is a loaded question because I'm asking you, I'm throwing a lot of things at you, Tyler, and I apologize.
No, I'm
but
glad you are.
but obviously Roman's been pinned first time in 3.5 years.
Mhm.
Solo Sikoa is, they're talking about him and mentioning the term tribal chief in certain promos. We've got this trial of the tribal chief on SmackDown coming up on.
I did hear something on
Yeah,
SmackDown. Yeah.
really interesting that'll be because obviously we had one with Sami Zayn in the past, which I thought was a fantastic
Yeah, we
segment of
did, which
television.
I thought it was great. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. First of all, what did you think of the match itself? And then secondly, that same old question that comes out of my mouth time and time again: where do we go next?
Well, first of all, I think the storyline has just been epic. It's I probably have
Yes.
used that word ad nauseum, but I'm going to use it again. I think the match was good. Now I do agree. Everything seemed to be kind of sped up, even though it not necessarily rushed. I can see that point. I, the match really too saw something I had to read on because I didn't catch it. It's funny the stuff you don't pick up on when you're actually watching the matches is that Roman Reigns actually low blowed Jay Uso back at a Clash Champions 2020. Well, he did the same finish or same kick out, not necessarily the finish, pardon me, to Roman Reigns this match. So it's the little intricate details that I forget that I found so fascinating. And yeah, I think it's brilliant, absolutely. And I'll tell you, did you notice the Uranagi spot? It's like the rock bottom that they did with Solo and Roman. I thought that was clever. So I know there's yeah, yeah. The Rock. You're mute. Yeah,
That
muted.
I'm
My bad.
muted.
I was going to
How
tell you. No,
unprofessional am I?
no. I still was able to see Brilliant, but then I caught on. I was like, oh no, I didn't realize you were, muted. I thought on purpose, but I was just going to say that spot with the
Mm,
Uranagi, the right bottom. Even if the Rock doesn't come back right now, who knows? I mean, everybody's saying no, and you don't necessarily need him because you've got enough talent. That's no knock on one of
yep.
the greats in The Rock, and he's busy doing his thing. But hey, it's still the possibilities there. But to get back to the Usos and Solo and Roman, I loved how Roman's continued what he did at Clash at the Castle. You were there, Si. He's talking the smack. The
Yep.
fans are saying F him. They can't stand Roman. It's going back to Drew McIntyre and all that. They don't want. And then you got some fans that acknowledge him. They're big Roman fans. They definitely have the respect as present. I mean, just the reactions. Paul Heyman, the way he does his face at ringside is just
Oh,
brilliant.
gold.
I mean, Paul Heyman is just an unsung hero. I've talked about it. I can't help it. I'm a fan of the Wise Man, and it's the teamwork. And considering the Usos were the more experienced team, knowing how many titles they've won, and this was Roman and Solo's second match, at least on Premium Live Event. They did well. I mean, they made it work, and they isolated, one of the Usos, and the Usos would get their comeback. We see a lot of these kind of matches, but it felt special because knowing Roman hadn't been pinned. But I'll just get to it. When Jay pinned Roman, I think the kind of finish. Now I don't know that we'll get this, but it looks like it may be Jay versus Roman at SummerSlam. Maybe we get that, or Jimmy
Interesting.
versus Roman. I mean,
Okay.
who knows? I don't. I think it'll dictate on what we see Friday night and then afterwards. But I think you could do something with that kind of finish. And you brought up Solo being referenced tribal chief. That's fascinating because we've seen Roman cower a little bit to Solo,
Yes.
and even Solo had to snap him out because where Roman got disheveled and frustrated. Solo looked at him like, come on, there's still a match going on. You got to get focused because Roman's doing a great job letting people dictate his emotions, making you think, at least the illusion, where
Mm,
he's selling his facial expressions, kind of like we talk about Heyman and wrestlers, not just managers or valets. It's all just important to the story process, and as with wrestling. And I just think it's all been just terrific. I know people have kind of been critical because with the Riddle stuff, they weren't particularly fond of him teaming with Owens and Zayn back a while ago. But I think regardless, even if it's not perfect, it's still just been, as far as storytelling, has just been some of their best. I mean, even as much as I'm with you, I like all the long term storylines from back in the 90s and 80s, and you could go before all of that. Man, what the Bloodline's doing, it's not just because I'm partial to WWE. I'm not. I mean, AEW's done some good storyline stuff, but it's just the longevity, I think, of their creative
yep.
and being around for so long and learning from what mistakes and not what to do. I think there's rumors that they're still not sure how to end it. They're still conflicting between themselves creatively on what to do. It's been that good
Mm,
that even on what twist or turn or direction to go fully. So I think the Civil War was good, how they started out on SmackDown, kind of giving us a tease, but not unveiling everything because you want to save that for the main event, and having Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn watching. I like how they didn't get involved. I was afraid they were going to get involved. I liked how they watched because to me, this is a civil war between family. They didn't need Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to get involved, but I did like how they made an appearance. So I
mm,
thought that was good. I was a little worried about that when they showed them. I'm like, okay, as much as I like Sami and KO, please don't get involved because we've seen enough
yes.
interference. Let these guys just battle it out, and that's what they did. And the referee's got to take a bump. I guess we should know that in a Roman Reigns match. And he's taken a lot of. That's the only thing that kind of gets a little overdone, but I see why, because you're trying to make the illusion like even Michael Cole sells it on commentary. How many times can he be fortunate? I'm paraphrasing, but it's just, so I see why they do it. But I thought the match was it was great to see the Usos get, their respect, their redemption on Roman being manipulative.
Hmm.
Him kind of getting narcissistic, playing into that character. You have to have it, and I'm glad to see Jimmy and Jay back together. I think, and now the fans are chanting Uso, but whether they want to boo Roman or not, they still throw up the one hands because let's face it, he's been the guy. So
Yes.
I mean,
That's,
I
that's
I
good.
know I went long winded, but it's hard
No,
not
no
to with
problem.
these kind of storylines. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing I can take away from the Bloodline storyline. I mean, the match itself, very, very good, and people listening would have checked it out, no doubt. And if you haven't, go and have a watch of it. It's very good. I'm looking forward to SmackDown on Friday
Yeah, me
here in
too.
the UK, which is a sentence I don't think I've said in about 10 years. So there you go. I'm looking forward to SmackDown on Friday. But I look at the the Bloodline story. Now there's this thing that came out on the network, on the WWE network, and it was the story of the Bloodline. And it was about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, and all it was clips of everything going way back when, just put together, and just the clips ran together. And it was fascinating watching it all develop bit by bit. And there was no talking heads, it wasn't documentary form, there was nobody explaining what was going on. You were literally just watching the clips of the Bloodline story, going through all the Sami Zayn stuff, all
Wow.
the stuff previously when they faced off in the past, and then the Sami Zayn and all that great stuff, going through all the different twists and turns. And it's interesting you mentioned there about the looks that we get from Roman with regards to Sokoa, the looks that the Usos would give each other. I mean, let's call it what it is: the acting chops of all the guys involved, the facial expressions, and so on. And I don't think this is going to get the credit it deserves with regards to a writing aspect, a performance aspect, and just a dramatic aspect. I don't think it will get any credit, the credit it deserves in the mainstream, because it's pro wrestling or sports entertainment, I suppose you might want to call it. But
However you want to say it. Yeah.
yeah, I think this. You look at the great TV series in the last God knows how many, Sopranos, Sons of Anarchy, all these. People were glued to their television, and you had these little character traits and twists and turns, and little tiny touches in the different stories, and little throwbacks to something that may have happened a year ago that comes relevant again in this. This, I think, is as close to that pro wrestling has been in my lifetime as a fan watching. You go back to the Dusty Rhodes Horseman stuff of the 80s and a lot of stuff the Crockett's did and all that. Absolutely superb.
Oh,
Sold
great.
tickets, great stuff. But this, to me, with regards to the little subtleties that you mentioned, the little looks, the little story touches, the little throwbacks to certain moves that were used in other matches, and so on. This, to me, is the closest it's come in pro wrestling that I can remember to being the likes of a big production drama television series. But it won't get the credit it deserves, the guys writing and performing, because it's professional wrestling, which I think is a huge shame.
It is a shame because wrestling is storytelling. It's cinema because it's on TV. It's episodic. I mean, so that's what I've never understood. Even though it's just because it's a different genre, why does it not deserve the same accolades as other ones that are
Yes.
award winning or don't have to have awards, but people compliment the storytelling, the art of it. It's I mean, wrestling is always because you take it for granted when you're watching as a kid. You don't know the moves are actually telling a story. You don't know that the backstage segments are
Mhm.
playing a factor and the back, whatever it is,
But
it
it still
all
leads you that way, doesn't
involves.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, it leads you to where, oh, something clicks. And now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to comprehend it more. I've told BenNy this, and I'm not sure I've had the opportunity to relay it to you, Si. So I think that's what's very fascinating when you get to a certain age. You go, oh, wait a minute. I used to watch wrestling for different reasons, but now I get why the story is so fascinating, why it's so important, significant, because that's what draws you. Like any show, like I don't care if it's a documentary or a movie, like you're saying, a TV show or something on the news. You have to something's got to gravitate, something's got to resonate. It's got to draw you in, and that's what I feel like they've done. And maybe I'm being partial because I appreciate good storytelling like you do, and BenNy and so many others. I don't want to speak for you. I need to speak for me, but it's been stellar. I mean, production.
Mm.
That's a good way to say it, and As much as I grew up liking the NWO and DX, or not just so much factions as I did matches that were also story. I gotta tell you, the bloodline maybe up there are not doing a lot of things that were missed on some of those storylines. I mean, even Eric Bischoff has admitted he's like, even as great as the NWO was, WWE's doing a great job of not making the
Yeah,
mistakes that we made.
yeah,
So for him to say that's is meaning a lot. That's a big compliment. I mean,
mhm,
that's
yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, Tyler, I've had an absolutely wonderful time talking to you.
man,
It's been a blast.
I've loved it. Yeah, it's always a blast talking to you or BenNy or whoever it is, man, because you're so knowledgeable. I love the questions you
Oh, I
ask,
don't know
and
about that. You're very
no,
kind.
no, no, you are. Well, I'm being kind, but it's true. I don't think you all give yourself enough credit. I really, it's always a fun time.
Yeah, I've had a great time. I've had an absolute blast. Money in the Bank in general, then, to sum up before we depart and BenNy rejoins you again next week. To sum up your final thoughts, my friend.
Money in the Bank was probably one of my favorites. To be fair, have not watched a lot of them previously, at least years prior. But this one to me, just due to the bloodline, Drew McIntyre returning, getting the confrontation with Gunther, also seeing Io Sky and Damian Priest become the winners of their Money in the Bank matches. John Cena showing up,
Oh my
Grayson Waller.
goodness. We haven't even
Yeah,
touched upon that. We haven't even
I
touched
know, and
upon
I
that.
forgot too. There was so much. That's what I mean. Even though Cena was on and
Yeah.
Grayson Waller, there
Well,
was
let's
just so
address
much
it
to
now.
talk about.
Let's address it now.
Okay.
I used to despise John Cena. I was part very much of the John Cena sucks brigade because I like good wrestling, and I didn't think John Cena gave me good wrestling. Now I'm probably the biggest hypocrite in the world because when his music hits, I mark out like an 11-year-old kid. I go mad. I love it. And Cena coming out at Money in the Bank was so unexpected. That is a moment I will rewatch again and again and again. And I think there are numerous moments on this pay per view that people will go back and watch again and again
Oh,
and
there
again.
there are.
But to come out and the crowd are just, I mean, the UK crowd are always wild anyway, but the crowd are so into Cena as well. And the fact that he seemed to get a kick out of how into Cena the crowd were, and he bounced
Mhm.
off that. And then mentioning WrestleMania. Now, this is the interesting thing for me. From what I've read and what I understand, there's no concrete plans in place. They're not teasing WrestleMania to then turn around and go, oh, yeah, WrestleMania in 2025 is going to come from Wembley Stadium or the Olympic Park or anything like that. Because WrestleMania is obviously a huge business for them. It's a huge money making situation. And cities and locations bid for WrestleMania. They have to pay the WWE to bring WrestleMania there because of the income it brings that location. Apparently they were teasing this to try and see what the response would be in the UK if anyone would be interested. And we do have MPs or politicians on this side of the pond, Tyler, who are actually talking about WrestleMania online
Wow.
and in interviews and saying it would be great to have it over here. Whether that actually does occur, I don't know. I never for a second in my whole life ever thought WrestleMania would be this side of the water. Ever. I'm still not 100% convinced it will happen. But I'm more open-minded to the idea now than I was before Money in the Bank. Because
Because
who
Cena,
knows?
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Well,
What did
yeah,
you
and
think?
I think it'll be great. I hope you do get it. I mean, I can see, maybe the trepidation of it not being in London or the UK, but after Clash of the Castle, after the SummerSlam back in '92, everybody references and all the major wrestling events that have happened even outside of WWE. I can tell you the UK deserves to have a yeah, Dan Griffin with a good comment, but uh, they deserve it. I mean, you all the fans, the people that follow it and are passionate. I mean, that's why you make me passionate. I mean, I want all the countries to be able to experience and get that feel. So I hope, man, that you all do get a WrestleMania. I really do. And Cena and Grayson Waller, talk about getting the rub. I mean, that's what it was for, to help get him over. And who better than to have John Cena? I mean,
Oh,
come on,
yes.
that was it, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. There we go then. Tyler, before we depart, well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's joined us in the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions and so on our way. It's been great. I want to thank yourself, Tyler, as well, for joining me
Oh,
this evening
I
here.
appreciate it.
Well,
Yeah,
this
thank
evening
you.
for me, afternoon for you, of course, for In the Corner Live. I want to thank BenNy Mac for asking me to step in whilst he's on his holidays and also giving us a year of In the Corner here on SJP World Media.
Yes.
But before we depart, do you want to let everyone know, Tyler, whereabouts they can find you online and all the fantastic content you're involved in? And I urge everyone to make sure you are following Tyler and you are checking out everything he's involved in. It is 100% worth it, I promise you.
Oh, I appreciate the kind words. I'm at Dustin Tyler 86 on Twitter. I currently contribute and do podcasts for WrestleBuddy and .com. That's WrestleBuddy.com. They're also on Twitter and all over social media, YouTube. And hey, check out SJP World Media, who I've got the great opportunity to be a part of. Like shows in the corner back when with Scottish Danny and to join Saw, on various shows and all the great content. Josh has got an amazing show with what he's doing on RSH. I always want to give him a shout out. And
Yes.
really there could be a list. I mean, you've got so many just terrific podcasts that you do and other people. I want to make sure people know about that too, because I appreciate everybody's support though with WrestleBuddy and SJP World Media, because I think they're both tremendous, and I'm just honored to be a part of them.
Well, you're very kind and you're very welcome. I'm over the moon that you are a part of SJP World Media. I love everything you do. So having you involved with the network is superb. Anything I'm involved in, you can find via the network that Tyler just mentioned, SJP World Media. That's at SJP World Media on Facebook and Twitter, and search for it on all your podcast players, platforms, and providers. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you never miss a live show. We have Chain Wrestling live on a Monday night, In the Corner, of course, live on a Wednesday. BenNy Mac himself doing a gaming show for us on a Sunday. Football coverage coming very, very soon when the new season starts in August. Plus all the podcasts you get as well. Looking at various TV shows from Doctor Who to Quantum Leap to Murder in Mind to nostalgia-based wrestling content with Nitro Nights, looking at WCW back in the day, and all sorts of other stuff. Loads of stuff going on with SJP World Media. But also you can follow this show at In the Corner WWE. At In the Corner WWE. Tyler, I have had a blast. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Oh, hey, it's always a good time. Yeah, thank you. You're very welcome.
And to everyone else, as always, thank you for listening. To see if I succeed, to see if I believe they're looking up to me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.